Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the star of our show, Teri.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Music and Me. I'm your host, Teri, and today we're taking a sparkling trip through Broadway history, from its humble beginnings on the streets of New York to the dazzling globe-spanning phenomenon it is today. We'll explore the shows, the songs, and the legends that made Broadway, Broadway. So grab your jazz hands and get ready, because this is one musical journey you're not going to want to miss. I have talked about Broadway on this podcast more times than I can count, but I don't care because I never get tired of it. You might, but I will never get tired of Broadway. Broadway has always been my absolute favorite type of music, even though I love all music, from pop to rock to everything in between. But Broadway has always been my favorite. There's just something about the magic of a Broadway stage. The drama, the glitz, the songs that hit you right in the soul. It's unbeatable. Broadway has inspired me in so many ways, whether it's the way a song can tell a story better than words alone, or how a character can stay with you long after the curtain falls. And now, I get to share all of that joy, history, and a few fun surprises with you. Are you ready? Let's take center stage and dive into the glittering history of Broadway. All right, friends, let's step back in time, way back, before the neon lights, the jazz hands, and the glorious sequins. Broadway was, well, just a street in New York City. And honestly, not the glitziest street in town. Dusty, bustling, a little chaotic, kind of like New York itself. The term Broadway eventually came to mean the heart of American theater, but in the 1700s and 1800s, theaters were small, scattered, and often a little rough around the edges. The first known performance space in New York was the Nassau Street Theater, which opened in 1750. Imagine that. Audiences sitting on wooden benches, probably sneezing through candle smoke, watching actors strut their stuff for the very first time. Broadway had humble beginnings, my friends, and that's putting it lightly. And yet, even back then, the performers were experimenting. Musical theater didn't appear fully formed. It evolved from vaudeville, operetta, and yes, some shows that would now make us raise an eyebrow. Believe it or not, Broadway didn't start with jazz hands and sequins. It started with more like dusty streets and wooden stages. But hey, even Cinderella had to start somewhere. By the late 1800s, songs like George M. Cohan's Give My Regards to Broadway were reminding audiences that this street wasn't just cobblestones and horse carriages, it was becoming the stage of dreams. And dreams, my friends, are where Broadway really begins. Now, it's time for Broadway's awkward teenager phase, the birth of the musical. And yes, musicals were a little messy at first, but they were so memorable. The story really starts in the mid to late 1800s with shows like The Black Crook in 1866, often credited as the very first modern musical. It combined a dramatic story with songs and dance, and the audience, they went wild. Picture it. A ballet troupe, accidentally stranded in a melodrama, costumes flying, everyone slightly confused but completely entertained. Some historians even say it was the first time Broadway realized, hey, maybe singing and dancing and telling a story could be a thing. From there, Broadway started experimenting with revues. Think variety shows on steroids. And that's where Florence Ziegfeld enters the scene. Ziegfeld Follies weren't just shows, they were spectacles. Sequins, feathers, glitz, glamour, you name it, Ziegfeld had it. He basically turned Broadway into a place where audiences didn't just watch a performance, they experienced it. And then came The Black Crook, which some say, as I said, was the very first musical. Basically, Broadway's awkward teenager phase was a little messy, a little over the top, but totally unforgettable. By the early 1900s, Broadway was gaining a reputation. Audiences were falling in love with shows that combined humor, drama, and catchy songs. The idea of the musical was evolving into something distinctly American, full of energy, optimism, and just a touch of chaos. And honestly, what's more Broadway than that, right? Now we come to the golden age of Broadway, the era where Broadway really found its stride and said, yes, we can tell stories with songs, and yes, we can make you cry, laugh, and tap your feet all in one evening. This is the time of Rodgers and Hammerstein, the legendary duo who basically rewrote the rule book for musicals. Oklahoma debuted in 1943 and changed everything. It wasn't just a series of songs strung together. It had a story, characters with depth, and dances that advanced the plot. Suddenly, Broadway musicals weren't just entertainment, they were art. The Golden Age was also full of iconic shows like The Sound of Music, The King and I, West Side Story, and My Fair Lady, all some of my favorites. These were the musicals that defined a generation, with songs you still hear today in movies, commercials, and your neighbor's car stereo. The Golden Age, where Rodgers and Hammerstein taught us that yes, you can tell a story through song, and no, it doesn't have to involve interpretive dance in the rain, though sometimes it did. During this era, Broadway became a cultural epicenter. The choreography of Jerome Robbins, the unforgettable melodies of Leonard Bernstein, and the storytelling genius of Alan J. Lerner and Frederick Loewe gave audiences a complete experience. People didn't just go to Broadway, they went to be moved. And let's not forget the songs. Who hasn't hummed Somewhere from West Side Story or dreamed of waltzing across the stage with Shall We Dance from The King and I? These songs weren't just catchy, they were timeless, and they still are. They captured emotion in a way few other forms of music could. The Golden Age wasn't just about spectacle either. It was about innovation, artistry, and setting the stage for the future of Broadway. It's no wonder that this era is still celebrated today. Now, before we keep moving through Broadway's incredible history, let's pause for one of my favorite parts of the show, my interesting fact segment, and then we'll continue with the episode. Welcome to my interesting fact segment. And since we're talking about Broadway, I thought we'd sprinkle in a little stage magic, or maybe stage superstition. Broadway is full of traditions, and yes, superstitions that performers swear by. For example, one of the most famous rules in the theater world is never say Macbeth inside a theater. Instead, actors call it the Scottish play. Legend says uttering the name inside a theater brings terrible luck. Think forgotten lines, broken props, or even accidents on stage. And if someone does slip up and says it, they have to perform a little ritual outside the theater to break the curse. Imagine explaining to your Uber driver, "Excuse me, I just need to spin around 3 times and spit over my shoulder before I get in." Another quirky one is never wishing an actor good luck before a show. In theater tradition, you actually say break a leg. Someone says it comes from bowing so deeply at curtain call that you break the line of your leg. Others think it's reverse psychology. Trick the theater gods by wishing someone bad luck so they'll actually have good luck. Personally, I'd rather stick with break a leg than test the odds. And here's a fun one. No peacock feathers on stage. Those dazzling feathers might look fabulous, but the eyes in the design were thought to bring bad luck, or worse, accidents. To this day, some productions won't even use them. Honestly, I wouldn't even bring peacock feathers near a karaoke stage. Why risk it when you're already nervous about hitting the high note and defying gravity? So between the Scottish play, break a leg, and those cursed peacock feathers, Broadway may be full of glitz and glamour, but it's also got its fair share of quirky traditions. And honestly, that just adds to the magic of it all. All right, everybody, superstitions aside, let's step back into the spotlight and continue our journey through the history of Broadway. Welcome back, everyone. If the golden age was Broadway hitting its stride, the 70s and 80s were Broadway trying on its quirky, brainy, sometimes confusing, but always fascinating costume. This was the era of experimentation, where creators started pushing the boundaries of what a musical could be. Stephen Sondheim became the rock star of this era. Though instead of guitars, he wielded intricate lyrics and clever melodies. Shows like Company, Sweeney Todd, and A Little Night Music challenged audiences with complex stories, morally gray characters, and musical structures that made you go, wait, how did that rhyme with penny again? Then came the 70s and 80s, when Broadway got a little brainy. Sondheim said, let's mix music with math, psychology, and a touch of existential angst. And the audience said, we love it? Meanwhile, concept musicals like A Chorus Line took a different approach, showing us that a musical didn't have to be about a traditional story. It could be about a journey, a theme, or even a group of dancers trying to land a role on Broadway. It was raw, innovative, and deeply human. And just when Broadway audiences thought they had seen it all, the British invasion hit. Andrew Lloyd Webber brought mega musicals with spectacle, glittering sets, and show-stopping songs. Cats had you questioning how many ways a person could convincingly act like a cat, and The Phantom of the Opera reminded us that a haunting mask can be even more compelling than a human face. Cats, Phantom, big, dramatic sets that make you go, wait, are we in a theater or Disneyland? And yes, you will cry at somebody's song. It's mandatory. This era was wild, daring, and sometimes a little confusing, but that's exactly what made it exciting. Broadway wasn't just entertaining anymore, it was evolving, experimenting, and proving that musical theater could grow up, get weird, and still keep you hooked. Fast forward to the 1990s and beyond, and Broadway is like a buffet. You name it, there's something for everyone. Disney brought its magic to the Great White Way with shows like Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, and Aladdin. Suddenly, Broadway wasn't just for theater aficionados. It was for families, kids, and anyone who dreamed of seeing beloved stories come to life in full Technicolor. Jukebox musicals started popping up everywhere, too. Mamma Mia let audiences sing along to ABBA's hits, while Jersey Boys told the story of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Broadway was embracing nostalgia, pop culture, and yes, some very catchy earworms. Then came Lin-Manuel Miranda, who flipped the script with In the Heights and Hamilton. Hip-hop, history, and incredible storytelling collided on stage, proving that Broadway could be modern, diverse, and revolutionary all at once. Hamilton, in particular, wasn't just a show, it was a cultural event, showing that Broadway could reflect today's society while honoring the past. Today, Broadway is like a buffet. There's something for everyone. You want a Disney epic, a hip-hop masterpiece, or a show about squirrels? Yep, somebody probably wrote that musical. It was probably Andrew Lloyd Webber. He likes to write about animals. But it's not just about spectacle. Modern Broadway is embracing more inclusive stories and voices. Shows like Fun Home, Hadestown, and Six bring diverse perspectives, fresh storytelling, and music that challenges and inspires audiences. And even after the pandemic, Broadway bounced back, proving its resilience and enduring magic. Whether it's a long-running classic, a bold new creation, or a show that mixes genres in ways you never imagined, modern Broadway is proof that this art form is alive, vibrant, and evolving, always ready to surprise us, move us, and occasionally make us want to stand and cheer with jazz hands at the ready. Broadway isn't just a street in New York. It's a worldwide phenomenon. Shows that started on the Great White Way are now traveling the globe, reaching audiences in London, Tokyo, Sydney, and beyond. Touring productions let people who have never set foot in Manhattan experience the magic of Broadway firsthand, and international versions often bring their own unique flair to classic shows. Cast recordings, live streamed performances, and even movie adaptations have made Broadway accessible to millions of people who might never see a theater in person. It's incredible to think that a song first sung in a tiny New York stage can now be heard in a living room halfway across the world. And let's not forget the Tony Awards. Broadway's biggest night celebrates the shows, the stars, and the stories that define the theater world each year. It's like the Oscars, but with more sequins and jazz hands. Broadway isn't just a street in New York anymore. It's a world tour waiting to happen. And the best part? No matter where you are, a great song and a story that hits your heart will always travel first class. Broadway has influenced local theater scenes everywhere, inspiring schools, community productions, and aspiring performers. The ideas, the music, and the stories of Broadway truly transcend borders, proof that theater is a universal language that speaks straight to the heart. Now, friends, no Broadway episode would be complete without a little behind-the-curtain magic. First, let's talk about the longest-running shows. Phantom of the Opera, Chicago, and The Lion King have been running for decades. That's a lot of sequins, a lot of jazz hands, and a lot of people singing The Circle of Life in their living rooms. And of course, then we have the Tony Awards. These glittering celebrations aren't just about trophies. They're Broadway's way of saying, you did a great job making people cry, laugh, and dream in equal measure. And yes, sometimes they come with big musical numbers and some questionable dance moves. Here's a little legend for you. Some say certain theaters are haunted by past performers who just couldn't bear to leave the stage. So if you ever see a phantom lurking behind the curtains, don't panic. It's probably just another theater enthusiast who just loves the theater so much and didn't want to leave. And speaking of weird traditions, did you know that every Broadway theater has a ghost light? Basically, it's a light left on stage overnight to ward off ghosts. Or maybe just to stop stagehands from tripping over the props. Either way, spooky and practical. These little quirks and legends remind us that Broadway isn't just about shows, it's about stories, history, and a little bit of magic that can't be explained. And that, my friends, is part of the charm. Okay, before we go, let's talk about some of my personal Broadway favorites. Wicked, as you know, has always been my favorite Broadway musical. It just holds a special place in my heart. There's something about the story, the music, and the power of those characters that hits me every single time. And I can't forget all of the Disney shows, The Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. I mean, the joy, the spectacle, the unforgettable music. How can you not love them? They never fail to put a smile on my face. And I was lucky enough to see The Lion King and Aladdin on Broadway in New York City. So that makes them even more special to me. And then, of course, we have Hamilton. I mean, it's impossible not to love Hamilton. I mean, the way Hamilton blends history, hip hop, and storytelling, it's just incredible. But I also have a soft spot for some of the classic favorites like Kiss Me Kate, Sound of Music, My Fair Lady, West Side Story, Oklahoma. There's just something timeless about all those older musicals. The melodies, the charm, the sheer artistry of them. I also love the cast recordings of so many shows, and honestly, I do listen to them all the time. Broadway music just has a way of making me happy, of lifting my mood, and reminding me of the magic of storytelling through song. And the beauty of Broadway, there's just so much variety, so many different types of shows to choose from. And I'm still discovering new favorites all the time because new shows keep coming to Broadway. So therefore, I have to listen to the cast recordings and I become obsessed with them. So it depends on what is on Broadway at the moment, what my favorite is. That changes all the time. Broadway isn't just music, it's joy, it's passion, it's a little slice of magic that can make any day brighter. And that is why I always keep coming back. No matter how many shows I've seen or recordings I've listened to, I will love Broadway musicals forever. And that, my friends, wraps up our whirlwind journey through Broadway. From its humble beginnings on dusty streets and early performance halls, to the golden age of glittering showstoppers, to bold experiments, mega musicals, and the vibrant, diverse Broadway we know and love today. We've seen how musicals evolved, how legends shaped the stage, and how Broadway continues to inspire audiences all over the world. For me, Broadway isn't just music, it is an experience. It's joy, it's magic, it's storytelling at its most powerful. And it's the reason I can't resist breaking into song while folding laundry, or why a cast recording can instantly turn a dull car ride into a full-on production number. Whether it's a brand new favorite or a golden oldie, Broadway has this way of lifting your spirits and leaving you humming long after the curtain falls. So until next time, keep your jazz hands strong, keep listening, and remember, Broadway is more than a street. It's a universe of stories, songs, and unforgettable moments waiting for you to discover. I want to thank you for joining me on The Music and Me, and I can't wait to share more musical adventures with you soon. And speaking of what's next, get ready, because in the next episode, we'll be diving into some of the most popular R&B girl groups. Think powerhouse vocals, iconic hits, and plenty of attitude. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss that one. Peace out, everybody. This has been the Music and Me podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a beat.